I want to give a big shout out to all of my patrons, my Wildlings, my Night's Watch, and my Kingsguard, which include Brendan, Scott, Oscar, Stuart, Pat, Ikaika, Amanda, RJ, Shad, Nicoletta, and Ezra. Thank you guys so much. You're the best.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Fantasy Network. I am, of course, Jimmy Nuts, and today we're reviewing the last entry in the Realm of the Elderlings series, the last entry in the Fitz and the Fool Trilogy. We've come to the end, and if you've been with me for this whole ride, I want to thank you. Thank you for watching this, and thank you for checking out all the videos before this. It's been a wild ride, and this video is very bittersweet to do because this is possibly one of the best series I've ever read in my life, and I think Assassin's Fate, somehow she figured out, Robin Hobb did, to write the very best book for the last entry. So it's weird. It's weird knowing that this is my last review for the series. There's still going to be more Realm of the Elderlings content coming on the channel. Tiers, the novellas are still to talk about. I want to do a character study, maybe, possibly. But today, let's talk about Assassin's Fate and what it meant to me. And I am going to keep this spoiler-free. I am going to talk spoilers at the end, so I'll give you a warning before I do that. I think most people watching this have read the book, so you'll get some spoiler discussion from me here at the end, and then I'm going to host a spoiler discussion, not just for this trilogy, but for the whole series in the near future, so be on the lookout for that on the community tab. Assassin's Fate comes out of the gate swinging. It is an awesome opening, probably the best in the series. I think Assassin's Quest and Fool's Errand both have excellent beginnings, but Assassin's Fate, not only do I think it's the best book, but I think it has the best opening in the series, other than the fact that Rap School shows up, and that bothers me immensely because I hate Rap School a lot. And this whole trilogy obviously is major implications on the Fitz and the Fool relationship, but it's also about Bee. And Bee is such a wonderful character. I think Robin Hobb took a huge risk with Bee's perspective here. And the other reviews, I tried not to talk too much about it because I think it's it's kind of a spoiler, but we're going to be talking about Bee now because I loved Bee in this book. I love the fact that we saw Bee living as a high-born girl, and now she's in this horrible situation with Dahlia, or however you say that name, and it is bad. It's really, really bad. So she's seen both extremes, and she actually acknowledges how soft her life was before all of this happened, and to see someone go through that, I mean, it's very heartbreaking because we love Bee, but it's also really interesting. It's just a whole new challenge, a level of challenge in life that she didn't know. She doesn't have maids to wait on her. All of the little people, at Withy Woods aren't there to comfort her. I mean, Fitz isn't there to comfort her. And it's a hard challenge for her to overcome. And I think it builds a lot of character and empathy for Bee, for us as a reader. We've seen time and time again that Fitz is always looking out what seems to be for everyone else, or what people will think about him, the implications on all the people around him. But this is the first book where I really felt like Fitz was totally out for himself. And that's crazy because everyone's counting on Fitz to essentially save the world. And I wonder, is Fitz really apathetic to what happens in the world? Does he really just want to get this back, get this guilt off his chest? Or is he lying to himself? Because Fitz happens to lie to himself all the time. So even after a whole 16 books, we still get a new phase of Fitz. We get a new side of Fitz. And to be able to accomplish that in the 16th book and it not feel like jarring is really masterful when it comes to character work. And that's why Robin Hobb is the best character writer of all time. In addition to Fitz, the Fool's examination of his emotional damage of what's happened to him over this series. We know, right? We know how bad it was in Tawny Man, but we look through the Fool's eyes, right? Through his own words of what he went through, not just through Fitz's, internal dialogue. And some of it is really hard because I've grown very attached to the Fool. I think Fool's one of my favorite characters of all time. And to see the emotional scarring on him after everything they've been through is really, really rough. And the fact that the Fool is still pushing through and still optimistic where Fitz has given up on the world, there's such a yin and yang. And the relationship between the Fitz and the Fool is just beautiful. And it does feel like this culmination of all of the things that these two have been through, Fitz and the Fool. And as always, one last hunt, and they hunt together. I thought that line was just incredible. And really, if you could put a poster quote, I think, that's one of them. There's another one I'll read at the end of this review to you that I thought was just absolutely took my breath away. But it feels like one last hunt. And Robin Hobb did not pull any punches here. This book is packed with action, but it's also packed with a lot of gruesome stuff. I think that Hobb took it to a whole nother level with being grim. I mean, we've seen some people in some pretty bad circumstances, but I think everyone's just going through so much turmoil here, and it gets really violent, and it gets pretty hard for these characters, and it was a little shocking. It was a little shocking to see how dark Hobb was willing to go, but I think she knew she had to blow this off, and she did it very well. This is probably my favorite. I think Fool's Errand was wonderfully paced, as well as Royal Assassin, but this is up there, like with one of the best paced entries in the series as well. Seeing all the live ship stuff that comes to play here in Assassin's Fate, oh my god, I loved it. I love seeing it through Fitz's eyes as well, because it just puts a different perspective on things and a different lens, because he doesn't know all the history between these characters, but it makes me look back and appreciate live ship even more. The complexities of those relationships in live ships take on a whole new meaning here in Assassin's Fate. Not just even just through the different lens, but on how these characters have grown, and it really, it's a testament to how much work Hobb put in that trilogy, and why it is one of my favorite trilogies of all time. It is so rewarding to see all those connections here. Of some of the most brutal scenes, because I kind of touched on how brutal it is. Specifically, it's Traitor Acreal chapter. When you read it, you'll know, or if you have read it, you know. I thought that was one of the most tragic chapters that Hobb's ever written, and oh, it hurt my heart. It was such a hope moment that just got taken away from us, and the cost of it for Traitor Acreal is great and very, very awful. And also with Bee's captors, one of the things that I want to talk about with all of her trials and tribulations is, and this is specifically what Hobb chose to do, is like a lot of writers will say, oh, this person's captured, and then we see him imprisoned and stuff. Hobb made us live it. She made us live being a captive through Bee's perspective, and it was absolutely overwhelming. It feels like we just fought tooth and claw all the way to the end of this book, and like Hobb would not, she had a hold of our hearts and she just wouldn't let it go. And she never does. And she really squeezed out every beat of emotional beat out of our hearts and of the readers who have been grown attached to this cast. And I just thought it was perfect. I don't think she overdid it either, because I was a little worried because of how emotional it was getting, that maybe it would be too much, but I don't. I think she crescendoed very well, and this ending is so satisfying. I was stunned. I thought it stayed so true to the whole series, and it increased my appreciation, not just for live ships like I talked about, but also Assassin's Quest. Like, I think specifically Assassin's Fate makes Assassin's Quest a much better book in retrospect. And if you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. But man, did she cash in on all of the goodwill that she built up with us, all of the emotions that she made us feel. And she just stayed true with this last trilogy, and specifically this last book, and she took chances. And I think it's really respectable that she didn't just, she could have made this a lot easier on us and on herself, but she took some risks and they paid off. And while still feeling like a fresh entry, a distinct entry, and an amazing distinct ending, it stayed true to everything that she's set in the tone of Realm of the Elderlings. It brought it all together, and it closed it up. It brought it all home. And that is what Assassin's Fate did. It punctuated the sentence. And Realm of the Elderlings will always be that to me. It will be there. It'll be comfort, and it'll be home. And it wouldn't be that way if Assassin's Fate hadn't ended the series, in my opinion, perfectly. Anytime I want to come back, I can now. I can go jump in at any point. I can jump into Tawny Man, live ships, wherever, and be with my friends and be home. And Assassin's Fate wrapped it up in a way that I felt like was almost perfect. There were two things that I think one thing I didn't like, and then the second thing is kind of and the definite con, you're going to laugh because you've probably been watching my videos, Thymara. Thymara is in this book, and I just was like, ugh. So it's kind of silly, but whatever. And the next thing's not necessarily con, but it is something to note, because a lot of people are not going to like this. But Hobb, for whatever reason, has made the decision that a lot of the deaths in Realm of the Elderlings happen off screen. When I say a lot, I don't mean like, 50% or anything, but like pretty important things. And sometimes if you're attached to that character, because we all attach to different characters, and I know there's one in my head I'm thinking of that didn't happen on screen, and you kind of feel cheated in that way. But I don't necessarily think it's cheating the reader out of anything. It's not like I think she was like trying to get out of it. I think it's because it's real, and in that way it is beautiful because it's human, and we get to process it with Fitz in his mind, and the fact that he wasn't there for some of these major moments. But with different people, that's going to land differently. So I'd like to know how you feel about deaths happening off screen, because it was a reoccurring thing. I guess I just want to say goodbye to some characters. But, you know, in real life, we don't always get to say goodbye. And I don't think it's fair to say that this is a con. It's just an interesting choice by Robin Hobb that I'd love to talk more about. So to put it quite simply, I think that Assassin's Fate is a tremendous book. I think it is pretty much the perfect ending that she could give us, or the most perfect ending that she could give us to end Realm of the Elderlings and this trilogy. I think this trilogy is the best entry in the entire Realm of the Elderlings. It's very close, but this one, it's just, you know, you have to look at what has to be accomplished, and to end a series like this, that task is just so tall. It's so ridiculous, and she did it. She did it, and Assassin's Fate specifically cashed out, and it's tremendous. I love it. I love this book. It's a perfect 5 out of 5 for me. But now I want to talk some spoilers. So if you haven't read Assassin's Fate, you want to turn the video off right now, because everything past this point is going to be spoilers, and I don't want to ruin it for you. Okay, spoilers. Fitz was on a live ship. Oh my God. So Fitz was on a live ship, and that live ship happened to be the most underrated character in Realm of the Elderlings, and that is Paragon. It has been so long that I'm reading this, and I'm like, oh, crap, Paragon has Fitz's face carved out him. I literally forgot because it'd been so long. I mean, what a moment. That has been built over thousands and thousands of pages. Are you kidding me? I loved it. That moment was tremendous. Paragon is such an underrated character, and he comes to shine in this last trilogy just as much as Fitz and B and all the others. Like, I think Paragon is one of the most, you know, he is so pivotal in the story, and I think he's the most underrated character in Realm of the Elderlings. I was absolutely rocked by a 3-word sentence from Robin Hobb, and I was going to wait to the spoiler discussion to talk about this, but I'm just going to say it, and we're in the spoilers, so I'm just, you know, Chade's death. Chade's death rocked me, absolutely rocked me, and you know, you've been watching my videos. I am not a Chade supporter in the fact that I always thought he had alternative motives. Turns out he wasn't evil at all. You know, he might have been a little bit selfish and a little bit, I would say, inconsiderate sometimes, and he definitely manipulated Fitz. There's no doubt about that. But Chade's death absolutely wrecked me, and Robin Hobb wrote a 3-word sentence that I think is one of the most beautiful sentences I've ever read, and not because she used a flashy word, but because she cashed out on thousands of pages of just a relationship building between two characters. And that sentence was, Chade's boy wept. I literally got chills when I said it. My hair is standing up on my arm. I don't have much hair. Yeah, Chade's boy wept. Man, like, that passage really rocked me. It was very emotional, and the fact that a 3-word sentence could wreck me and bring, you know, Chade's boy wept. Well, Fitz's boy wept over here. I was out of it, man. I was literally weeping into my book, and that doesn't happen all the time. But Hobb's done it a couple times. But this was rough. This was really rough. But in a beautiful way, because Hobb has built characters and relationships that I literally feel that are tangible. And another, like, really grim note that I want to note on is, like, whenever Clary's is being described as this beautiful city, and then it goes deeper and talks about the citizens, like there's women and children, it's actually, like, really, really dark, because you know the dragons are about to come and mess it up and kill all these people. And it's like, they don't, like, they're not part of the oppression, right? Like, they're just following their society and what they believe in. And it's weird seeing people, like, in their everyday life, and you know they're about to get murdered. It's pretty heavy. I thought that was, like, a really grim little detail that Hobb took time to do to show the impact of what was about to happen. And it wasn't all grim and sad when B killed Walia and became the Destroyer. Like, B becoming the Destroyer was one of the most, like, fist pumping, like, get it moments ever that I've ever read. And Robin Hobb is very good at, like, orchestrating these beautiful, simple sentences that mean a whole lot and all this stuff. But this was just downright in your face revenge. It was down in your face taking hold of destiny. B as the Destroyer. I did not see that coming. I did not see that coming. And I wonder on a reread if I would have seen more and more of that. Like, all the journal entries from B and stuff, all that stuff was absolutely epic. And those are some of my favorite things, like epigraphs in fantasy. And I think that hers had a lot more foreshadowing than I realized, and I would love to go back and read it again. And then Fitz becoming essentially a silver god. I thought that was so interesting. And also, again, kind of sad, because it's not the Fitz we know and love. And, you know, he has silver all over him. But what, like, an interesting moment. And we learned about the silver and Rainwild Chronicles, so it kind of cashes in on that. It was just like, is this really happening? And a quick shout out to Ronica Vestrit. She shows up and I popped. I was like, yes, thank God Ronica's here, because I think in live ship, I didn't give her enough due in my reviews, but I am team Ronica all the way. And then my last note here, and we're going to talk a lot more spoilers in the spoiler discussion whenever I have some people on, and we're going to do this big, not just this trilogy, but the whole series, so we'll talk more then. But when Fitz gave his pin that he got from Shrewd to Purr, I started crying, and I did not stop until the last page. Chade's Boy Wept got me, but I mean, I was just consistently emotional through these final pages to the back. I literally had tears hitting the page. I mean, that's how emotional it was, and for good reason. This is almost 4 million words that we've read together. And I'm sure you felt this way whenever you read this book. But when he gave Pear the pin, I was like, this is really happening. Like, we're about to see the end of Fitz. And he carved his woof, and him and the Fool went in, and it was just like, it's heavy. It's heavy, and I think it was a fitting end. Again, I think it makes Assassin's Quest even more beautiful. I think it shows the similarities between Fitz and Verity, and Fitz always wanting to be like Verity in a lot of ways, because Verity was there for him when no one else was. And we get a lot of highlights from Kettrick here, and she sees the similarities between it, and it's just really heartbreaking. And when Fool realizes that he has to go with Fitz, it is excellent. It was excellent, and I'm going to miss these characters a lot, and I'm sure you do too. An amazing ending to the series, and I can't wait to talk more about it in the spoilers. There are endings, there are beginnings. Sometimes they coincide with the ending of one thing marking the beginning of another. But sometimes there is simply a long space after an ending, a time when it seems everything else has ended and nothing else can ever begin. And that quote wraps up my experience with Realm of the Elderlings. There feels like an empty space in my day where Fitz is not there. I've been reading this stuff since February, right? And it's hard. And it's a space that I don't think anything else will ever fill. I felt that way about A Song of Ice and Fire, and I feel the exact same way about Realm of the Elderlings, and the fact that I don't think I'll ever read anything quite like this again, until I reread, which I will. Robin Hobb will probably never watch this video, but if you do, thank you. Thank you so much for these 16 books that have made me introspective. I think they've actually made me a little bit of a better person, made me think about my own relationships. And this is a prime example of when people say that fiction is a waste of time, or fiction is silly. I challenge that with what Robin Hobb accomplished here. Almost 4 million words in 16 books of the best character development I have ever seen. She is the best character writer in fantasy. I will go as far as to say today I think she's the best fantasy writer of all time. And The Realm of the Elderlings is my favorite completed fantasy series ever as of today, dethroning The Faithful and the Fallen Banished Land saga. Robin Hobb is on a different level than the rest of the genre, in my opinion. If I had a Mount Rushmore of writers, I would say that Robin Hobb would without a doubt be the first name on that list. I think she did something special here in a time where no one else was really going down this road. I think that it was very distinct in the market at the time, and it has continued to be distinct because there's nothing else like this, really. There just isn't. And Robin Hobb is a special writer, and it seems to be a special person. And I can't thank her enough for writing the series, because it almost to a point feels like it was written for me. That's how much I identified with this. And I know some of you watching saying, it's not my favorite or whatever. Well, it's mine, and that's subjective, and that's my personal opinion. This series means a lot to me. And what also means a lot to me is the experience I've had reading this and reviewing it with you. And people will watch this from this point on out in the future. And if you're watching this, I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for checking out all these other videos. I think a lot of the spoiler discussions have been amazing. We still have one left, right? We still have one more, and I'm going to do other Realm of the Elderlings content, so don't think it's all for naught. We're not done yet, but with the reviews, unfortunately, this is the last one. And I just thank you. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. I think a lot of people have actually watched all of the reviews, which is amazing. And I can't tell you how much I really appreciate that and spending your time with me, because I think this is a very raw and emotional series that has connected me with a lot of people. There's a lot of people on my Patreon or just subscribers and viewers that watch that this series has built a personal connection between us, and to gain that experience is there's no price you can put on it. It's priceless, and I appreciate it more than anything in the world. So thank you for being here with me. I'm not going to tell you to like and subscribe, because if you're watching this video, you probably have. But just thanks for being here. Thanks for experiencing this with me. The Assassin's Fate is my favorite book in the entire series, and this is probably, this is in the top 2 favorite series of all time. So it's been a special experience. I'm glad you were here, and I hope to talk to you again real soon. The Patreon is down in the description if you want to join that. Optional, but always appreciated. And until I see you next time, be good, be safe, and remember to always keep turning the page.